Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm glad to have you. If you're coming back, thanks for coming. I'm glad to see you back again. I touched a little bit on some people that inspired me as a nurse, and so I want to talk about them. I want to highlight them. I want to talk about how I was inspired in my nursing role. My grandmother is probably the biggest person that inspires me. Her name was Carmen. I've talked about her before. She was 5'1", full of energy, and she didn't become a nurse until she was in her 50s. She raised her family. She ended up divorced from my grandfather and had a child at home that was still young, and she had always wanted to be a nurse. So she went back to school and became a nurse, and she worked until her 70s as a nurse in long-term care. And I remember when I was a child that her mother, my great-grandmother, was in and out of rehab and things like that until she was no longer able to stay at home. And my grandmother would go to her house and provide care to her mother as well. And I remember that. I remember my grandmother having the bars in her house for therapy. I remember sitting in her living room when she was doing those therapies. And my grandmother, I think she worked in memory care. If memory serves right, I think she worked in memory care. And I remember her talking about how proud she was to be a nurse, you know? And I think that stays in my heart, thinking of her and how she carried herself in life, not just as a nurse, but in her life. She was a great woman and a great example for me, and she inspired me to be who I am as a woman and as a nurse. And there was a Sunday school teacher I had. Her name was Sharon. She was a little woman too, and she was a Sunday school teacher. She would do things for us in Sunday school, and she seemed to love everybody's kids. And she was a grandma and she was a nurse, and I remember her being in her whites, and I just really think about her a lot as an older woman now. I think about how she touched my life and the kinds of people that nurses are. I have an aunt who was a CNA, and my cousin also worked as a CNA when she was a teenager. And I would hear stories that they would tell about their work. And my aunt eventually too became a nurse when she was older and did home care. Now my aunt is on a whole other level with nursing, but she truly inspires me when I think about the kind of nurse that she was. She loved everybody's kids too. She loved little kids, and she actually did pediatric home care, and God love her, because I could never do that. I was very passionate and have been very passionate about geriatrics, long-term care, and I have come into hospice and have become passionate about end of life as well. But those are the people that gave me my foundation. I will say that I have encountered many nurses, and I've talked about this before, but nursing was not my dream job when I was a kid. I thought I was going to grow up and go to law school and become a lawyer. I probably wouldn't have made it as a lawyer. I'm far too emotional. I'm pretty argumentative, and I'm pretty law-abiding, but I don't think I would have made it as a lawyer. I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed being a nurse. And I have worked with some really great nurses who have inspired me. There was a nurse practitioner, her name was Pat. She was wound certified, and she inspired me to become a registered nurse, because she would come in, and I was the treatment nurse in the facility, and she would come in and debride wounds and do teaching at the bedside to the patient, to me. And I just saw what an amazing human being she was, and an amazing nurse practitioner she was. And I really aspired to be like her. I knew if I wanted to do the job she was doing, that I would need to go further in my education. And so I think as nurses that people have inspired us to be who we are and to be here in nursing. I don't know where I would be without the people that made me who I am. I think that I have seen my family members do a lot of nursing type cares in our home. So maybe it was just a natural progression for me to go into nursing. And I've talked about how I've gotten into nursing before. It was a stepsister-in-law who was working as a CNA, and she said to me, hey, the company that I'm working at is going to pay for people to go to class to become certified as a CNA, and you just have to work for them for a year. Do you want to come? And I was like, maybe. And I've also talked about this too. I dropped out of high school when I was 16, and I didn't really have a career in mind for myself. I don't think I thought I was ever going to have a career at that point in my life. I truly was down, and I did not believe that I was ever going to amount to anything in my career life. I was working, in a video store. I had tried to work at Walmart. Not for me. I had worked at McDonald's. I had done different jobs, but I never stayed working in those jobs. I didn't love them, and I was really down. And I remember that when it came time for my class to graduate high school, just hearing all of them graduate and walk across the stage, all the people that I grew up with, was really emotional for me. And I really had a low opinion of myself after dropping out of high school. I saw this as an opportunity to do something with myself. And I remember I told my family, I want to do this. I want to do something. I want to make myself better. And it was instrumental. That girl giving me the opportunity to become a CNA was instrumental in my nursing career. Her name was Rhonda, and she brought me in. I never even knew that I would like healthcare. I never even knew that I would like nursing. But when I got into it, it became something that I really enjoyed, and I wanted more, and I wanted to do more. And I think also my CNA instructor's name was Connie. She had red hair and a boisterous personality, bigger than life. And she pulled me aside and she said, I really think that you should consider going into nursing. And I think all of those voices and all of those people stayed in my head and pushed me to do more, to want more, to keep on. And my grandmother, Eunice, she came to me when I had been working as a CNA for a long time and said that I should go on in my education and get my GED. And that was the push for me to go to nursing school. Once I got my GED, I went into nursing school and I became a nurse. And so I think all those people paved the way for me to be where I am today. And those are the people that have inspired me and made me the kind of nurse that I am, and made me passionate about my job and introduced me to the world of nursing. I think as nurses that you got to have a big heart, right? You can't do this if you don't have heart, if you don't have compassion. And I think I've seen so many great examples in my life of people who inspired me to be a nurse. And even working in healthcare with nurses, I've worked with some really great ones. Marietta was the nurse that I worked on night shift with that trained me, and she was so funny and so knowledgeable, and she made that transition for me from greenie to nurse to, it was amazing having worked with her. And I always think of the kind of nurse that she was. She was diligent, and I worked with a nurse that was an LPN when I was a CNA, and she was very hardworking. She was very hardworking. She had 2 floors that she was responsible for at night, and she would help me when I was alone as a CNA on the floor. She would help me turn or reposition someone or pull someone up in the bed if I needed to. Her name was Sue, and I think that she was an amazing nurse, and she inspired me to be the kind of nurse that is willing to help. I promise you, I'm not the best at turning and repositioning at almost 50 years old, but I still will do it. If you need my help, I still will help you to pull somebody up in bed or to turn somebody or reposition them. And I think that those are all important things. All the people who inspired me as a nurse have become a part of my story. And I think that we become a part of each other's stories as we go on as nurses. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It lines up with what I'm passionate about, and it lines up with what inspires me. I can't thank those people enough for giving me the push that they gave me. You know, my grandmother saying to me that I should get my GED and get my education was a big factor in me continuing from CNA to LPN and going on into my RN. I will tell you that grandmother who was a nurse and my other grandmother also paid for me to take my boards. I I wasn't making it, I didn't have money, and I got through school with a Pell Grant. And I was thankful for that too. That Pell Grant got me through school and helped me to better myself. And so I think it's important to never forget where you came from or who was the big part of your story as you go on in life, and to give those people credit where credit is due. Who inspires you? Who makes you want to go be a nurse? Is it your kids? Is it a family member that you look up to? Is it another nurse or healthcare worker that you know? I would love to hear about who inspires you in the comments. Let's talk about it. And I hope that you all feel inspired. And I ask that if you like what you see here, that you like, subscribe, and follow. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.